The eye tracking in this headset
is insane.
Look at anything.
Pinch like this.
Oh yeah. It was reading my mind.
There's something really special about this technology.
I'm hearing it everywhere. The new Apple Vision Pro is simply magical. That's the word they're using. Magical for a tech device, let alone for a VR headset. And it's not because of the displays or apps or the comfort. It's surprisingly mainly because of its user interface. But here's the thing. I've been in VR for half a decade and I've been making videos about AR and VR for most of that time. And I struggle to believe that Apple has somehow created something so radically superior, so transformative that it warrants the use of the word magical. And so
and I like that Thrillseeker keeps it real like that. That's why I watch Thrillseeker. He's like super journalist in this area, and I appreciate that.
So given all this, I have this burning desire to see it for myself so I can make my own conclusions. The problem with that though is I can't get access to an Apple Vision Pro. It's impossible. Only a select few were granted access, and the rest of us might have to wait an entire year before it's released to the public.
Wow, how incredibly stupid of Apple. This dude's got almost 1 million subscribers. I don't know why Apple wouldn't give access to people with large fan bases so that they could get reviews on this thing. You know, what's the deal there? Makes no sense. Seems like easy marketing, free marketing to me. All they have to do is give out 3,500 units that cost $15 to make.
And to me, that's an unacceptable answer, especially when I just want to try out the UI. But I figure
apparently there's some people that get to use it that, you know, like it's not publicly released, but you think that they would give it to like people that would actually talk about it, you know, rather than just like a few elite people. Like, you know, like, it's ridiculous.
I have the next best thing right here, the Meta Quest Pro. It boasts all the same features like eye tracking, hand tracking, pass-through, all the same stuff as the Vision Pro. So, of course, I reached out to the vice president of Meta, proposing an idea to explore Apple-esque user interfaces on their hardware as a public test. We have this amazing piece of tech today. Why not push its boundaries and
Global elites for the win, says Damon. What's up, OG Dames? How you doing, dude? 43 months in a row like a boss,
actually use it? And of course, to my surprise, no response. So, you know what? Here's the deal. If Meta won't pioneer this exploration of their own hardware, I'll do it myself. I just need to see for myself if this is the innovation everyone makes it out to be. So, we're going to recreate the magic that is the Apple Vision Pro UI in VR on the Meta Quest Pro. And then I'm gonna release it to everyone so you can try it out for yourself. And I think you'll see by the time we're done with this experiment that everything we know about VR, or more properly, everything we think we know about VR, just might have been
I like this idea.
So before we get to building and testing, let's talk about user interfaces. You may not really think all that much about the UI and UX of all the technology you use around you. And that's by design. A good user experience is one that you don't have to think about. You're able to interface with the technology easily. It's intuitive. Usually you only really think about a UI if it's bad. And whether it's a computer or smartphone, we have had decades to perfect these things. But of course, that means that it wasn't always perfect. I mean, early computers didn't even have a mouse. One of the first ideas was actually to use your foot and knees to control a computer.
Silly
which
humans.
makes me really glad that the mouse caught on. And then, of course, nowadays our phones barely have any buttons. I always think back to the ex-Microsoft CEO's statement when the transition from BlackBerry-style phones to touchscreens happened.
It doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine.
Yeah, that didn't age so well. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that UI UX is an ever-changing and evolving thing. We've had decades to figure out most of the things around us, but what about the next step in computing, spatial computing, AR and VR? There has been decades of research, but it really wasn't until about 6 years or so ago that we made a huge leap and this technology was actually made available to people. And to be real, with all of the experience I have with different headsets, the only thing that I'm confident about regarding UI and UX of of VR and AR is that I am not confident that we have figured it out yet. And to see
Not even close. Not even close. You know, like I talk about this all the time, man. No controllers. The ability to track fingertips, like the ability to track it, and so that it's effortless, so that it's literally effortless.
where I'm coming from, let's just look at these VR user interfaces. Basically, all VR UIs have worked the same for the past decade. You have a couple ways to control things.
Screw these controllers. Screw these controllers. It needs to be minority report. It needs to be minority report.
Basically, the first one that is used for 99% of all applications,
We should be
doesn't matter
farther
what
than this.
operating system you're on, what game you're in, what headset you're using. Ubiquitously, VR is controlled by a laser that points out of your controller. You point the laser over certain UI elements and press the trigger, and that's how you interact. And
Not even
it
a
works.
racing glove
It's
fingers.
sometimes clumsy
my
and a
hands.
little shaky, and scrolling can be
my
weird, but
bare
for any and
hands.
all menu navigation, it does its job. Now, hand tracking is the other control method that's used far less often. It's largely hardware locked because only a few devices have it, and really only Meta headsets allow you to interact with the entire operating system using just hands. And their systems do work as well, and I like using it, but there's a problem. When I'm touching a screen in VR or interacting with
Yeah, like here's the thing though. It's all gonna come down to the competition's gonna get so fucking crazy in this genre, in this field of VR, AR, MR, AR. And this field, man, is going to explode. People are going to go into it. We're going to go in. Like, I don't think people understand we're entering this age where we're literally going to go inside. And we're going to have the everything game or the everything experience. And you're going to go to the hub and people will go into it. And that'll be worth something. And it'll be digital. And people want to advertise in it because eyes are going to it. Because people are going to it. And it will be a mecca. It'll be a new land. People will go in there and they'll spend money. And once the space realizes the amount of people and the amount of cash that's going to get in there, they're going to put the money in to do the work to get the hardware needed so that they can suck people's money right from their eyeballs. That is exactly what's going to happen within 10 years. People are going to progress. They're going to compete. Prices will become more competitive. And then eventually you're going to have spaces where we go inside and we go to these VR areas and it's untapped. It's lying there waiting and people are putting serious money to work to figure it out, like Zuckerberg, Meta, Apple. They're all starting to fucking go towards this, and it's just an event. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen. I know a lot of people have a really bad stigma with all this, but it won't matter because the kiddos, they're going to strap these headsets on and go in regardless. And as the older ages die off and that stigma dies off, all that's going to be left is the technology and the kiddos that grow up to be adults and then teach their children how to do it. That's exactly the evolution of this. People that are fighting this, it's pointless. It's pointless to fight this. And it's pointless to get upset at it. This is change. You know, I get it. A lot of us old school mofos that saw the internet actually happen, like, we're getting into this area, and a lot of us, this is a bad taste in some of our mouths, right? But it doesn't matter. It won't matter what we think. We're dying off, and this is the way it's going to go. And money is going to hit like mad in this area, and things are going to get competitively priced, and you will eventually be able to use your fingers, and you'll have the tracking cams so they can actually pinpoint. The software is going to get better. The UI is going to get better. Everything's going to get better because money. Because greed.
UI, I'm not actually touching anything. And the best way I could equate this is it's like trying to use your phone without touching the screen and using it a few feet away. It just feels off and a little clunky, and it's not all that accurate. So what does Apple's headset do that's different? Well, the Vision Pro actually doesn't have
I did
any
say Zuckerberg,
controllers
by the way.
at all, which is a huge point of controversy. The main control method that VR has used for 10 years is just out the window. And they aren't using purely hand tracking in the way that Meta does. Instead, they use a pretty basic system, combining eye tracking with hand tracking. So instead of pointing a laser at an icon and then pressing a button to interact with it, you look at the icon and perform a subtle pinch gesture. That's it.
I told you guys because I see where this is going? I told you guys this 2 years ago. This was going to get better.
I'm in a fountain.
I would also like to say that we will be offering banana fountain merch very soon here. If you guys can see the new banana fountain merch. Where was it at? Hold on a second. This is something of amazing beauty, and I love this. We're gonna put this on the site right now within the week, and we're gonna put them on shirts. Nobody will buy them. We'll sell one of them, but the banana fountain shirt is a must. I think I will probably order this for myself and sell one the entire year of 2023. The merch should be like ridiculous. That's going to be coming out. Like, give us about a month or two. Anarchy's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Thank you, John Bonane Fontaine. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you, bro. Let's get back to the movie here. Oh, this was the DG360 AI art, by the way. I think I'm going to put that on our shirt as well. That would be fun.
Seemingly, this works for everything throughout the operating system. If you look at a search bar, you just pinch and speak. Virtual keyboards are hell if you've ever tried one, so this is great. If you want to move a window or object, you just pinch and look at where you want to move it to. And most of the Vision Pro's praise comes down to just this. This is the magic. It's all down to UI, which makes this whole experiment really straightforward. We are, of course, going to recreate this exact setup. Make the magic. Now, I'm not necessarily a VR developer. I've dabbled plenty, but this is the first time I'm building anything for the Quest. But I do know what we need, and I know what I want to accomplish. So here's the basic concept. I want to be able to look at something, pinch once to be able to move it with my eyes, and then pinch again to deselect it. I also want to build a replica of the home screen app icons that we see in the Vision Pro's main operating system to just see how it feels moving across the icons with your eyes and being able to select it using that pinch.
I love it.
And this is also to see if there's anything special going on. I had one developer say that this idea is going to be impossible because the Quest Pro's eye tracking just isn't accurate enough. So we're gonna
make it better.
See for ourselves, because if Apple's headset does have some crazy superior eye tracking to other headsets, I also want to know that. We're going to do this all in Unity using Meta's various SDKs.
All right.
And with all of these resources and OpenXR, getting a working VR rig in Unity is surprisingly easy. From there, I just add the hand tracking SDK components, quite literally just turn on eye tracking, it's a toggle, and I already have all the basic functioning systems here. Eye tracking and hand tracking are working in my demo. So I know I'm going to need a couple main systems. I'll start with eye tracking. The eye tracking is on, but it's not doing anything. So I'll make a script and assign it to one of the eyes that does something extremely important. It will project an invisible laser in the direction of eye tracking. It's doing what's called a ray cast. Essentially just copying the laser that's normally on controllers and putting it on my eyes. Now, this is an invisible laser. You obviously don't want to see it coming out of your eyes when you're playing the demo, but here's what it looks like. It knows where I'm looking, and it knows if I'm looking at something that is interactable. Step one is finished. Now, onto hand tracking. Well, I got hands, but they don't do much yet. I need my simulation to accept a gesture. I need it to know when I pinch, and I need it to do something whenever I do that pinch. So I built a simple test that detects if my index finger comes close to my thumb. I then turn that into my pinch gesture that can be referenced for anything. And after we have a pinch, we're already on to step 3, putting it all together so that if I look at something that is interactable and then I pinch, I then interact with it. Now, this was the hard part, and it took me 2 14-hour days straight of scripting, testing, and lots of bouncing off of ChatGPT-4 to check errors in my code. I am not a classically trained programmer, but 48 hours later, lots of coffee, and with the help of my AI friend, I had a...
Dude, this guy's like a seriously good journalist. This guy needs more notoriety. This guy's got under 1 million subscribers. He should have like 10 million subscribers. The amount of work this guy puts into editing his videos and the amount of work that he's actually doing right now is like ridiculously awesome.
Completely working prototype. The eye tracking raycast allows me to look at objects, change the material, and start an animation when I look at it. And then when I pinch while looking at something, I'm able to move it. And surprisingly, it already feels really good. Despite a few bugs, I can look at something, have my hands at my waist and pinch, and it just just works.
I love
but
that he's doing
now
this.
that my demo works, it's
We've
time
said
to
this
make it pretty.
so many
this
times watching his
is
vids.
the Meta Magic Pro demo.
He did it, dude.
Everything works as intended. It's still not perfect. There's
Yeah.
a few
little
weird
rough.
bugs that happen occasionally, but it gets the point across. It is a user interface test that
it's-
allows us to demo the most
It's
praised
a
part of the Vision
possibility.
Pro, all using
possibility.
current off-the-shelf hardware and without having to wait a year to spend $3,500 on one. And after all this work, after trying it myself, I really think that
What's up?
we're onto something. I think it's
144?
time to have a serious talk about my impression.
Welcome to the fam. Grab your chicken soup. Do not ask why. Just get in the ring, bro. Just get in the ring.
I don't think the laser on the controller that we've been using for years is the only answer. And for right now, hand tracking alone is a little clumsy. But I had a stark realization after putting this together. And here's where my mind was at. After I finished making the demo, I hopped onto the Index, of course using Index controllers, and I had this thought as I navigated through the Steam VR menu. Why do I have to hold controllers all the time, 24/7, while in VR? And to
He's watching the channel. He's commented on our videos. He's complimented everybody. He says how awesome it is that we watch his videos. He gets a lot of feedback from it. And for the past, I think 4 or 5 videos from thrillseeker, we've been talking about how what we really want as gamers is, or users of this technology, is to be, boom, controller free, just hands. Interestingly enough, he's talking about it a lot. So I would say you're welcome.
I'm in a fountain.
You and I did that.
do basic interactions, why do I have to aim a pointer at things? How great would it be if I only grabbed a controller when I needed it for a game, for example? Everything else, watching movies, simple apps, basic menu navigation, the casual stuff, they don't need a controller if you have the right other hardware. And I've never had this thought before, but suddenly I found it really odd that controllers are a requirement at all times.
Yes, sir. You're not gonna hate me.
I've said it so many times. It's so refreshing to hear somebody say that. It is so refreshing to hear that.
Plus, they restrict you from interfacing with the physical world.
Fingers.
Whereas my demo and the magic that people call the Vision Pro's UI feels just pretty amazing to use. We don't have to think about where our eyes are looking. We don't aim them. You just look. And this little pinch that can be performed at my hip even is so subtle that the best way I could explain how it feels to interact using this method is like using a simple brain-computer interface, which I've used a couple of them for VR and they provide the same feeling as this. Like the application is reacting more to your thoughts than your movements, which circles back to UI UX design. A good design goes unnoticed, effortlessly facilitating the interaction between the user and the technology. But a great design can change everything. And the magic that everybody is talking about isn't so much a revolutionary feature that only Apple has. It's more about combining simple, intuitive, and efficient interactions to make a magical experience. One that feels good to use and is confidence-inspiring in a virtual environment. And don't get me wrong here, I am not dismissing controllers for VR or saying they're obsolete, actually quite the opposite. Controllers are absolutely necessary for most VR experiences, especially games. But they are tools. And just like how I wouldn't use a hammer to cut down a tree, maybe it's worth exploring how we can more efficiently think about the tools that we use within VR. Because you gotta admit, if you think about it for a minute, it is just a little weird that we have to strap controllers to our hands for every VR interaction. Imagine if we only had to pick them up when we needed them. And
imagine another step further. I'm going to even take it another step further. Imagine the realism of a VR experience, a game that you're playing where your hands literally can only use the items that are around you, and you have that feedback of clicking things in the game to make these things function, to the point where if you're taking your hand with no controller and reach down for a gun and you just mimic holding the gun and then you squeeze your finger like this, it'll shoot the gun. That's the next step. You can actually bypass the controller for games as well. You got a flight sim, you take your hands, you grab the stick in game, you move your hand, you're right there. You got maybe you want that tactile feel though. Maybe you want that tactile feel in the reel, and that I do understand, and that's probably where you want the controller. But imagine a game where it's just no controller at all, that you still can use hands, and it's so deadly accurate. Like, that would be crazy.
I also want to say that this is not a perfect demonstration.
Right,
it's just a
Backspace,
proof of
right.
concept to see if the Quest Pro is even capable of
Right.
it. I wasn't sure because Meta didn't use eye tracking for anything, and it turns out that it is. But I gotta admit, it is a whole different beast to implement this into an entire operating system, and I'm not saying that this is the exact same thing as Apple's headset. In fact, their system is a whole lot more complicated. I learned that after hearing from a Unity engineer. I just did everything the easy way here, but the point of this is that it's just an exploration of a totally new VR UI. Which brings us back to the original question that I asked at the beginning of this video. Were we wrong about VR? Is Apple right? And I don't think there's any good answer for that, because there is no defined wrong or right answer in how to solve these UI UX problems. The only real wrong answer is to think that what we have now can't get better than it currently is.
Right.
To think that there's no room for innovation.
Right.
Because there is so much we can do in so many different ways to make AR and VR so much better.
Right.
And I still truly don't think that we have
love this
found
dude. He's a
our
pioneer.
mouse
This
yet.
dude's
But I
a
will say that I
pioneer, man.
am kind of concerned after making this video, because Meta for some reason isn't including eye tracking on their next headset,
Oh,
the
come
Quest
on.
3, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they'll make in the next year or two.
Yes, sir. You're not gonna hit me. Yes.
Dude, the people that are going to get to this the fastest are going to win the biggest. You know, like, I think that's a huge misstep on Meta's part. Huge misstep.
If the Quest 3 did have eye tracking, it would be a pretty valid competitor in almost every
Chrono says, better for who? I'm not loving this direction of better. I am, and I'll tell you why. Because as a kid, I wanted an experience like a holodeck, right? Like, I remember watching Star Trek as a kid saying, God damn, I wish I could step into the room, and the room became like another reality. And I think the only way we're going to get to that, because I want that experience. I think that's cool. Like, personally, I think that's cool. And yes, it brings about these crazy philosophical debates about what is reality, because eventually if you step in, like, there were plenty of Star Trek episodes like that, dude, that had, like, once they were in, they couldn't figure out where they were at. So there's that danger as well. But, like, as a gamer, I want those experiences. I want to be a pioneer as well. I want to go in there. The less gear, the better for me. So that direction is the coolest direction, in my opinion.
way besides processing power to the Vision Pro.
I don't know.
Really.
I don't know,
And
but
if
I'm
there's
willing to
one
risk it,
major
Chrono.
takeaway from this, it's that I really hope that eye tracking makes its way to VR headsets as the standard as soon as possible, because it's such an extremely powerful tool. Not only for foveated rendering, which gives you 10 to 15% free performance, it looks way better in social applications. It's fun for games that use it as an interaction tool.
Hell yes,
And if
he's
I
right.
could navigate through all of Steam VR and the Oculus OS using it right now in this fashion, I would. I wouldn't even think twice about it.
And why is this something that is not mentioned at all until I've been, like, pounding the table with it, and now thrillseeker finally picked that up and ran with it? Like, I really don't understand why that voice wasn't even out there, or people couldn't put 2 + 2 together. It's just ridiculous to me that nobody else had these thoughts. I'm sure you guys watching had those thoughts.
And I'd probably end up using VR even more for just casual things. But it has to become standard, and companies like Meta have to actually use the hardware that they put in their headsets, unlike how they did with the Quest Pro. And so, my final conclusion sum up. And while I haven't tried the full Apple headset yet, they are onto something really awesome in terms of UI especially. And I really hope that everybody takes this idea and steals it and runs with it, because it's the closest thing to VR's mouse that I've ever experienced, and I want more of it. Which is
Pioneer.
exactly why I
Pioneer.
made this little tech demo. And I want everybody to be able to try this for themselves, so this demo will be available on SideQuest for everyone to try. Just know that I made this in like 2 days, so there are plenty of bugs, but I do plan on updating it with more and more
He's
functionality
awesome,
to make this
dude.
demo
He's
more
awesome.
comprehensive
He is
than just
freaking
basic
awesome, man.
interaction. And it will work on a Quest 2 as well, just you'll be using head
that'd be
movement
great,
rather
Joe.
than eye movement. I'll be updating the status of the tech demo both in my Discord and on Twitter. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed all this.
I got to rate on this one here, man. I'm going to just be like, dude, you're awesome. That's it. That's it. Thrill Seeker, if you're watching this one, good for you, man. Way to pick up the ball and run with it, man. This is exactly what the industry needs. People need to wake up and smell the roses, figure out that there's a whole untapped way about going about the design in this industry, man. And it's only going to be the pioneers that push it forward. So his voice, man, it's really important in this space. I can tell you, I think he's probably one of the most important, influential people in this space, especially as a journalist. He's dead on. He researches shit. He knows what's up in this space. He tests out a lot of the gear. I love watching his channel. I think he's a genius.